Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. I'm also here to give you very important updates, what's going on in immigration, and also information about how to get your papers here in the U.S. Go ahead, put your questions, put your comments in the comment section, and I will go ahead and answer your questions. It's so good to see you here. Thank you so much for joining. I see you all joining. It's great to see you. Now, let's start with updates. There's a lot going on, and I know all of our heads are spinning. And for those of you who are currently going through it, I know as an immigration attorney, I'm in it with my clients too. So I understand to a certain extent how you must be feeling, but especially if you are here as an immigrant. Now, what I'm getting basically, if you are not a US citizen, you need to be aware of what's going on, point blank. If you are a green card holder, if you have a visa, you need to know what's going on and you need to be careful because the immigration based on patterns, while they have stated, I even saw Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, went to Jamaica, and a reporter in Jamaica did ask, should green card holders be worried when they're trying to re-enter the United States? And he answered, no, the green card holders should not be worried as long as they're following the rules. The part that is not being said, but which we as immigration attorneys, and if you are watching the news, you'll notice as well, is green card holders are being targeted when they're re-entering the country. They are being closely scrutinized. And in addition to this, the immigration, USCIS, Immigration Service, ICE, they will now be reviewing social media accounts. And why that is relevant to all immigrants, whether you're a green card holder or you're not, is that for green card holders, they are moving to revoke green cards based on what you've said in your social media. If it indicates, for example, support for certain movements that maybe the US government, basically, it differs from the position of the US government, or if you're making anti Trump statements, then they can use that as a basis to say that you are a national security threat. That's where they are actually getting people detained and having them go through the court process. At first glance, you would think this is cut and dry, and I believe it's cut and dry. This is freedom. This is about freedom of speech. This is about due process. This is about constitutional rights here. However, what they have done is they've taken provisions of the immigration law and they've applied it to immigrants who have made statements that they find contrary to the position of the current government. And when they do that, they are able to then say, that they are a possible national security threat or they're a threat to their position on public policy. That is where they are now able to put these immigrants through the ringer, put them through a process because they're saying they're a national security threat. So a judge can't just, I'm looking at it from legal perspective. A judge is probably going to be looking at their arguments and saying, well, I can't just let you go because the government is claiming that you are a national security threat. So you need to go through the process of proving otherwise. So we're not going to release you. We're going to put you through the process and you're going to have to prove that you're not before the judge is going to let them go. So the judge has to go through a full analysis to then determine whether this is about, the First Amendment, the right to free speech, which everybody in the United States, regardless of your immigration status, deserves to have deserves you are entitled to the right of free speech. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I've had racists, I've had anti-immigration people come on here and say immigrants don't have rights. That is not true. Immigrants, regardless of your status here in the United States, you have the right to you have constitutional rights here on the US soil. So that is not true. But a judge has to go and listen to both sides and then make a determination whether this is about free speech or whether the government is right on their position that they are a national security threat. Now, they are going to be doing this for immigrants. They are going to be justifying, detaining, and revoking visas based on that argument, that based on what they've said, based on the movements or the protests that they've participated in, they are a threat to the United States. And we're seeing across the country, we're seeing that I believe they're revoking 300 visas of immigrants who have expressed support for Palestine and Palestinians, and who have protested the war in Gaza. They have now revoked their visas and they're currently looking for them. Or some of those students, if you've watched the news, you've seen is some of these students have already left, knowing that they're possibly facing. I really think at the end of the day, they could prevail in a court. However, nobody wants to be locked up and put through that scary situation to get to the result, which could be possibly years of litigation. So some of those students have left and they've decided not to face that fight. But now we know there are two green card holders who are detained, two high profile green card holders who are students who are being detained and who are facing threat of deportation and revocation of their green card. So keep in mind that right now, with when Trump went in, his main target was supposedly undocumented immigrants. However, what I would say here is nobody is safe. If you are not a US citizen, then you are not safe. You have to understand your rights. You have to understand the implications of your actions, and move forward like that. Unfortunately, this is the reality we're looking at. So, one of the questions that I get often is, should I travel? I'm a green card holder. Should I travel? Right now, I and many attorneys, immigration attorneys, are on the same page on this. No, don't travel right now until we can understand fully what is happening. Don't travel. Um, if you have to travel, I do understand that you may have emergencies internationally that you have to tend to. You just have to understand your rights. You have to understand the level of risk that you face based on your particular circumstances. And that's where it's time to talk to an attorney to make sure that you are safe. Also, if you have to leave for extended period of time, over 6 months, you need to get a re-entry permit before leaving the United States as a green card holder. So now here is some encouraging news. Here's some judges across the country have put a halt on these moves by the administration to conduct mass deportations without due process. So we have Judge Boasberg, who put a halt on deportations, particularly of Venezuelans under the wartime law. This law has been used twice in the history of it being on the books, and it's a very, very old law. And the judge has identified that it is problematic. This using this wartime law on immigrants, saying they're enemies of the country and that they need to be detained and removed without due process, is problematic. So the judge put a hold on that. The Trump administration appealed that hold on the deportations, And the appeals court did not, they were not amused by the application of this law either. One judge even commented that, first of all, the judge commented that, you mean to tell me you all can take me and put me on a plane and send me out of the country without any defenses, without her having any defenses put forth? And she was outraged at that. That is not, I mean, clearly that is not due process. And immigrants are not enemy combatants. They are not citizens of enemy states. So we're not in war with any of the countries of these immigrants. So clearly, it just doesn't fit. But then the judge also commented that the Nazis were treated better. So when they found Nazis, because if under immigration law, Nazis, I'm pretty sure they're dying out now, but Nazis who, they are known Nazis, they supported the Nazis in Germany, are not allowed to be here in the United States. And so the judge commented that even Nazis who were citizens of an enemy state are treated, were treated, and probably are, if there are any living Nazis, still treated better, as in they're given due process. So why are immigrants being gathered up, Venezuelan immigrants? So when they are suspected gang members, which when you look at the document, there's a document that was released showing how they identify gang members, and they identify gang members based on very rudimentary characteristics like tattoos. They just removed a makeup artist, this in the news, a makeup artist who was from Venezuela to El Salvador based on his tattoos. And he is far from a criminal. Many of the Venezuelans that have been flown out of the country don't even have a criminal record, but they justify that removal by looking at tattoos, for example. So that is very encouraging here, that they cannot apply the law to deport people without due process. That means that you have the right to go before a judge, prove your case. And right now, immigration court cases, if you're detained, it can be 6 months to a year. If you're not detained, it can go on for years. So you have to go through that process first. For now. Now, the judge did say, though, that they can still deport based on the regular immigration protocol, right? Just don't use the law right now until they figure that part out in litigation, but they can use the law. They can go ahead and use the law, use a regular immigration law, which means going before a judge, except in cases where you're subject to expedited removal. So that's encouraging. Also, a judge in California put a hold on the revocation of TPS of Venezuelans, and they're also going to look at Haitians, which you think if they did it for Venezuela, they're probably going to do that for Haiti because of the horrible conditions in Haiti. But the judge has put a hold on taking away TPS, temporary protected status, for Venezuelans, based on the fact that there seems to be animus, meaning it's not just based on unbiased analysis that the TPS was taken away. It's based on a sort of prejudice against these immigrants. So that is encouraging as well. I do know that these decisions will be appealed, but the judges make a very good point here. And so judges are really coming forward. They're really standing their ground. They're really abiding by the principles of the Constitution. That's their job. And that's why we have checks and balances in place. So let's keep prayer alive. Now, one thing I want you to know is that even though they're ending TPS, they are, but now it's on hold for some cases. But there have been talk about ending parole, ending TPS. These are types of relief that are granted to people based on the discretion of the administration, right? This is why they are terminating these, because it's easy to do. They have to, of course, the judges, of course, are concerned about not following procedure to do this. But at the end of the day, the president, the executive branch, has the ability to, at their discretion, grant TPS and also end TPS, or decline to extend TPS and the parole program as well, or to grant parole. But these are not, under the law, they can do that. But these are not the same as immigration forms of immigration relief out there, like VAWA, like the T visa, like the U visa. I need you to understand that, because a lot of people out there, they are listening to the village lawyers, and those village lawyers are telling them there's no, all of any kind of relief for immigrants, especially immigrants who don't have their papers here, is gone. That's not true. And the only way that these types of relief, like VAWA, and I'll get into what those are, VAWA, the T visa, the U visa, adjustment of status through family, Section 245I, SIJS, those are options that are on the books that cannot be changed except by Congress. Congress, it has to go through the House, it has to go through the Senate, then it has to be signed by the president, right? There, we will definitely see that coming. We will definitely see a process going forward before you see those going away. So if you are here and you want to understand whether you qualify for forms of immigration relief that can get you your papers here, then that is definitely going to be the way to do it. And you can give us a call, right now, DM us to schedule a free initial evaluation so we can determine whether you qualify for one of those forms of relief. But they are still there. Now, the policies, the way that they make decisions, it's going to be different than the last administration. But know that it is there, and that's what we do. We don't take cases that don't qualify. We have a free initial evaluation just because we don't want to take your money and waste your time without first evaluating whether you qualify, whether we believe you can get assistance from us. That's what it's there for. So take advantage of that. Give us a call. Our firm is a safe space. That's what law firms have to abide by: confidentiality, attorney-client privilege when you become a client, where they cannot, nobody can take the communications and use it against you. So this is where it's so important to give us a call. Take advantage of the free initial evaluation that we have. Our staff is available up until 5 p.m. and every day, 24/7. We have staff that answers the phones, that answers your messages, to be able to get started on that. That's going to be your first step. Now, let's talk about qualifying for these, and then I'll get into your questions. So put your questions in the comments. I'm going to spend some extra time on this live to answer questions afterwards, but I want you to understand what relief is out there, and even in this climate, why it is important to go ahead, determine whether you qualify. Knowledge is power. Knowing whether you qualify for an immigration benefit is going to be your first step. It's going to empower you to know that, and then you can move forward with that process with confidence, knowing that you have a chance, you have a good fighting chance. What I would start with here is Many immigrants, they are closing the vice on immigrants and making it very difficult to even hide. We do have where they are going to sue over the registration that's going to be taking place. But keep in mind that between the registration, between the IRS now disclosing the information of those who have removal orders, I believe right now the IRS and which is unprecedented, it's unprecedented that the IRS would disclose, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lawsuit coming, but they are closing a deal to hand over the addresses of undocumented immigrants who have removal orders. So they've limited the information to those who have removal orders to hand it over to Department of Homeland Security, to ICE, to find those people, I guess, to be able to search for those people. But also, if you're here, there are certain exceptions. If you entered with a visa, if you are applying for certain adjustment of status, you don't have to register. But now there's this registration program that it's like what do you say, a double-edged sword. They are now trying to close the vice on immigrants by saying, if you do not register, then you are going to face fines and criminal penalties. And then guess what? Now you have the fine, you have the criminal penalties. Now it can affect your ability to get your papers in the future because you have this on the record where you were subjected to fines and criminal penalties as a result of not complying with the registration. So it's really a double-edged sword, and it's a trap. Frankly, it's a trap. It's a trap to get people to register so they have your information, but at the same time, you're compromised. So there is a lawsuit because it's sort of saying, here's what it's saying. It's saying, go ahead, register, and by registering, you are admitting to us that you don't have your papers and you're possibly deportable. And now there's a lawsuit that says, hey, that's not correct because you're forcing people to incriminate themselves, which is a violation of the Fifth Amendment. Because remember, we all have rights here in the United States. So this lawsuit has now been put forth to put a hold. So we'll have to see what happens with this lawsuit. But it basically says, it is a trap to get people to incriminate themselves, right? And so it violates the Fifth Amendment. We'll see. I think that's a good argument here. And then in addition to that, you have to go for a biometrics appointment, which in itself is scary because the registration does not grant you any benefits. It doesn't. So when you read the text of it, it looks really nice and kind in a way, sort of like, hey, we'll give you a little card to walk around with, and you can use that card whenever, if anybody asks you for your identification, you have to present that card too. And it sort of sounds like a benefit. Towards the end of it, of course, it makes it clear it's not a benefit. But some people can easily be lured into a situation of thinking this is granting them a benefit by being able to carry around this card. It's saying it's giving you some sort of advantage. It really is not, because the priority of this administration is to find and deport. It's not to do any favors for any immigrants who are here paying their taxes, working. It is not there for that. So here is a situation where there is no safe place. I feel like when I'm analyzing everything, there is really no safe space. And so you have to look at protections that you qualify for under the law. That's what we do as a law firm. That's what I will always advise you to do. And I make sure I take cases that I believe, based on my own experience and professional judgment, will qualify for relief. But that really is where what is coming down to. And what I say is, you don't have to make any decisions now, but understand where you are. What the decision you need to make now is to empower yourself with information about what you qualify for. Is there any protection under the law that can help you to bypass any of these traps that are being put in place? Right now, we also see this deal with the IRS. So many immigrants now are wondering, is it safe to apply for your ITIN? But at the same time, it's denying people the ability to comply with the law, because if IRS is exchanging information with the Department of Homeland Security, then why would an immigrant volunteer their information to get an ITIN? Why? They would just avoid now paying taxes and be vulnerable to failure to pay taxes. So these are really traps that are putting immigrants in between a rock and a hard place. But here's what I say. As an attorney, and as representing clients who comply with the law, I would say always go comply with the law where it is feasible to do so, right? Because there are situations where complying with the law may not be the best thing. It may not be the most humane thing either. But here, where everybody is supposed to pay taxes, and you're here, you may not have your papers, but you are required to pay taxes, then you need to pay those taxes. Because here's the deal: you don't pay the taxes, then immigration uses it as a justification to say you don't have good moral character because you were here working, you didn't pay taxes. So it's a double-edged sword. But going before an immigration judge, showing you did the right thing by paying taxes, complying with the law, the tax laws, it can help you to show that you have good moral character, right? Because judges will look at that and they will consider it. It can also be proof of your residence, but tread carefully. Seek legal advice, seek an attorney to determine whether do you fall within the risk of having your information disclosed to the Department of Homeland Security. Is it a good idea? First, get legal advice before taking any action. But this is where I say, don't just hide. Hiding is not going to pay off here. Showing that you are following the law, that you are also entitled or you deserve protection under the law, is going to be the best thing here. So here's one scenario. And every day I come on and I do videos all the time, but here's one blanket scenario that I would say definitely give us a call and let's work on a solution for you. If you've been here in the US and you have been abused or mistreated in any way, it's time to give us a call, because we want to know your story. We want to know what you've been through, and we want to understand whether you can get relief based on what you've been through. There is relief available for abuse victims, and the type of relief depends on what you've been through. So, for example, if you're married to a US citizen or a permanent resident, and they have been mistreating you, they're not filing the papers, especially now. They're using the whole Trump administration and mass deportations against you to get you to comply with them, to get you to give them money, to get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do, or just to get you into a fearful situation. It's time to give us a call, because you may qualify for VAWA. VAWA allows you to get your own green card, your own protection from deportation without involving that relative. Another very important thing to know with VAWA is if you're going through the papers, you're going through the marriage-based papers, you're going through a family petition, and this relative is mistreating you, and you're in a situation where you feel like you can't trust them because they're just hot and cold. I'm gonna withdraw the papers. I'm gonna cancel papers. If they schedule an interview, which they're certain to schedule the interview now, I'm not gonna show up to the interview, right? Oh, I'm not gonna give you the papers you need to file the to answer a request for evidence. Then you can switch your process from that family based or marriage based process to the VAWA process based on the mistreatment. So you don't have to go through and get to the end where they could sabotage your process. If you have a spouse, you have a parent, or you have a son or daughter who's age 21 or older and who's a US citizen, and they are threatening to get you deported, believe that threat. Believe it. Because they do have the means to report, This is an administration that they will definitely take any kind of information about undocumented immigrants and follow through with it. So, for one, believe the threat. And two, take action to protect yourself. So make sure that you follow through to see what are the ways you can protect yourself. What are the ways that you're able to make sure safeguard yourself against the threat of this relative, because we're going to start seeing that. And if you don't express in an application that you are the victim in this case, it will get a lot harder to fix that situation if that relative should follow through with a threat. Also, if an employer is threatening to get you deported because you don't want to work, or they get you to work faster, to get you to work, to get you to stay, to get you to work more hours, to get you to comply with them, they're saying things like they're going to report you, or they're making you fearful to leave. They're creating a situation where you're fearful to leave, so you stay in that situation, and they use it as a tool to get you to comply. Then you could qualify for the T visa, because we're going to have a lot of that in this current climate. But the law is what states that you are entitled to get relief based on this. It's not based on the president's discretion on whether he wants to give you or not. It is written in the law, and we fight for our clients to show they qualify under the written law. So make sure you understand this. If you're going through mistreatment or abuse, give us a call, and we'll do an initial evaluation. And then after that, we'll schedule an appointment with the attorneys so we can start working on strategy and get started on your case. I want to tell you about the advantage, one win that I've had in the past week, just to show you that having a process in place is beneficial. I had a client who came in as an unaccompanied minor. He ended up with his mom, his mom is a victim of labor trafficking. And they sent a separate notice for him to appear in court for removal. We were able to act very quickly to show that our client qualifies as a derivative under the T visa, and also separately for other forms of relief as an unaccompanied minor. And as a result of that, the court has ordered that the case be placed on hold pending the process in place. So we get that approved, we get the relief approved. So while the court has given us a chance to apply for the relief for our client, and then once that's approved, all being well, our client will likely have their removal case stopped. Also, my T visa clients, are getting bona fide determination letters. And bona fide determination letters say they put a halt, and we're getting those in 2 to 3 months. They say if there's any removal proceedings in place, they should be put on hold right now. So there's a stay of removal. And in the case that, and they're also protected from removal while their T visa is going forward. So this is where it pays to be able to, because you have that document, it means that you're less likely to be detained. Or if you're detained, you can be released, because now we can, if an ICE agent won't accept it, a judge will look at that and say, okay, well, the bona fide determination letter states that this client's stay of removal should be in place. So they're, for right now, they have to be released. So it just goes to show you that having a process in place means you're able to fight harder and you have a fighting chance. If you don't have a process in place and you get detained, then the battle gets a lot more complicated. So keep that in mind. All right. So now that I've given you an update, I've talked about certain types of relief, I want to answer your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start on TikTok and move my way across. Please start putting your questions. I see a ton of questions, so I'm going to answer those questions. Please put your questions in the comments now so I can start answering. A friend of mine lived in a different state from her husband because of her child last year in school. So living separately is going to raise questions. It has raised questions, and you need make sure you do have representation, and make sure you understand how to move forward with approaching it, right? Because that's real life. Couples sometimes live apart because they have to work apart, they have to go to school, they have different careers. For example, in this case, we have a child who's in school. They don't want to destabilize their child and they want to stay with their child. So you have to confront that head on. It's not a good idea to hide those facts. But what it is a good idea to show immigration that, yeah, you're a real couple with real issues, and face it head on, answer those hard questions, but do it carefully and strategically. This is where having legal representation is important, because no case is simple. I'll tell you that right now. No case is simple. A colleague just told me about a case where it was a simple cut and dry marriage based case. Husband and wife, they went in, and before you know it, the officer is asking about the immigrant's work history. And before you know it, no, they're not supposed to hold, when it's marriage to a US citizen, they're not supposed to hold they're not supposed to hold work history against them. Well, now it's turned into a situation like that, right? Where now they're saying that the work history is false, so that's misrepresentation. It was never even supposed to be held against them. So please know that going into any of these cases, citizenship, marriage based, family based, it is not cut and dry. It's not going to be cut and dry. You must make that assumption. You must make that assumption so that you approach it with care, and that you make sure you submit a solid application. I'm a green card holder applying for my girls, 17 and 19. Can you please explain the CSPA? So the CSPA, the Child Status Protection Act, is put in place to stop certain children who are included in an application from aging out. So there is a certain calculation that you have to make based on the approval of the petition, or the receipt of the petition, the priority date of the petition, and the approval. So when a visa number becomes available. And based on that, they would either, so say they applied when they were 19, right? The age for children under immigration is under 21. As long as you're under 21, you still qualify as a child. So, what they say, you've been waiting for a number of years. And based on the calculation, they can see if there are a number of months or years that they've been waiting based on the timeline that I told you. They're going to minus that from 21. So if they say they've been waiting, say they're 19, they've been waiting and now they're 22. Now, based on the time they've been waiting, based on the calculation, they can minus those years and months from 21, 22. And if it falls under 21, then it means that they still get to move forward with their case as if they were under 21. There's a special type of calculation, and the calculations really depend on the what you're applying for. So that in a nutshell is it. But if you have specific questions about the CSPA, you want to figure out if your children are going to be protected under it, you can give us a call and then we can do the specific calculations. When your case sent to the Department of State, how long does it take for you to get back a reply? So if you're talking about the NVC, National Visa Center, usually you'll hear within a few days of them receiving it, you'll get a welcome letter. And then after that, they'll be able to, after that, it depends on your priority date. You probably won't hear from them until they're ready to process your current priority date, which is based on the national visa bulletin that you have to have a current priority date. I overstayed my visa, but I was sponsored by my mom. Do I have to go back to my country for an interview? Yes. So keep in mind that overstaying, if you're 21 or over, you overstayed, and your mom is a US citizen or a green card holder, there is no way for you to adjust status. You can't fix that. That's where I always say never make that mistake of overstaying, thinking you're going to get through. It's very specific. The rules related to that is very specific, and I've seen so many people make mistakes. Please make sure that you understand the implications of an overstay, especially before you end up overstaying. You want to understand what those implications are going to be. So in this case, your way forward is probably, and now keep in mind, I don't want to count you out completely because there is what's called Section 245I. 245I does allow certain immigrants who have been here or who have had who've had a petition submitted on their behalf or a labor certification submitted on their behalf before April 31st, 2001. If you are April 30th, I have to check. But if you had a petition filed, an approvable petition, even if it wasn't approved, it was a valid petition that was filed, and for one reason or the other, it didn't go through, then you can qualify for adjustment of status without leaving under Section 245. But you have to make sure that you fall within the categories of Section 245I. So, so that's one way that you could get around it, but I don't know your situation. I don't know your facts. I don't know how long you've been here. Usually the petition has to be on or before that April 30th, 2001 date. My I-360 is still pending too. So I have been waiting on I-485 from 2023. Now they say my case transferred to the national, I think the National Benefits Center. and my I-360 is still pending too. So once your I-360 is approved, then they'll go ahead and process your adjustment of status. So that I-360 has to be approved first. When your case sent to the, okay, so I answered that. I have a 2-year married green card, but my I-131 was denied. Can I travel outside and come back? So if you, I have a 2-year married green card. If you have a green card, you do not need a travel document to travel outside of the United States. That's probably why it was denied. I don't know, but I think that's why. You're a green card holder. You can travel outside of, now, what I would say though, whether you do travel is another story. I'm erring on the side of don't travel unless you have to, until we understand fully what's going on. But you don't have to, if you have to travel, you just need to have your 2-year valid, unexpired 2-year green card. If you're applying for the 10-year green card, you have to have your original extension notice with the expired green card to travel, plus your passport, of course. So that may be the reason. But I would say this, we have a potential travel ban. So they've said they've put the travel ban on hold for now, because I don't know why they've put it on hold, but they've put it on hold. But if you are coming from one of those countries that are likely to be on the ban, or just having a green card alone, having a 2-year green card at that, I would say look at your options to make sure you don't face an increased risk. If you're an F1 and have perm in process, can we work on CO8 EAD? So it sounds, something sounds pretty complicated about this. So you have an F1, so you're on a student visa. You are being sponsored by an employer, but you also have a CO8 EAD, which means that you've applied for asylum. CO8 is usually the category related to asylum. So I would say here, that's an unusual situation. If you have a valid work permit, usually you can work. But I would say if you have an attorney, definitely talk to your attorney, because your attorney knows your case individually. And I can't give personalized legal advice here. Everything is general information. I've been physically abused by my husband. Yes, so definitely get in touch with us. We need to hear from you. There is protection, there's relief for you. You don't have to stay in that situation, and I'm so sorry. I have 2 years. Let's see. I answered that. Oh. How can I contact you at this number? So call 561-405-4889. And you'll be able to talk to one of our representatives that will then be able to route you to the right person for the free evaluation. And then we'll once you qualify for our assistance, we move forward with focusing on strategy to go forward. We're located in Boca Raton and Delray Beach, Florida. However, we represent clients in all 50 states and around the globe. So no matter where you are, we can help you. Consultation. So the initial evaluation is free, and then once we determine that, you do qualify for our assistance based on the initial evaluation, then you'll have a strategy session with one of our attorneys. And that strategy session right now is $150. So go ahead and give us a call. There's nothing to lose here. Hi, can a green card holder travel to Afghanistan because of travel bans and the green card is SIV? So I'd be very cautious about traveling to a restricted country right now, having a green card. USCIS won't resend RFE. What should I do? So that I don't understand why. We've had RFEs resent, so I don't. Usually we contact them and we work it out. So can you send a message to USCIS? So we'd have to be your attorney to send the message to the USCIS. Please tell them to approve my green card. So I guess that's the process in a nutshell, but it depends on what's going on with your case, whether you qualify, where are you in the stage. This is where it's very important to get in touch with us. When your case sent to the Department of State, how long? Okay, so I would say a week or two to get an email from them. Good afternoon. I'm waiting for my I-360 from 2023 to approve and still waiting on my I-45. I-360 to approve takes 2.5 to 3 years. So you're looking at about 2026 for that approval if they do not lengthen the processing times, which I did see a question about that. Processing times we can expect to get longer just because of the processes they're going to be putting in place, extra vetting. They're going to be looking at additional background checks, and also they are going to be looking at social media accounts. That's what's going on now. So it's going to take time. Is it okay to go on vacation to the US while you have a pending I-130? I would be careful about traveling right now. But I am not your attorney. I can't give you legal advice, but I would say be very careful about that. When your case, let's see, the administration is still deporting without due process. So they're right now they are not deporting people based on no, they have admitted to errors in the past, but that was before the order was put in place. However, keep in mind they're deporting those who are under the regular immigration law, right? They're still having to do that process, but they're not allowed to deport based on the wartime law. Yes, at the beginning of this, there was a conflict, but they can't do that anymore. They can't move forward with that unless, of course, it's under the regular immigration process that they're doing that. For example, through expedited removal. Expedited removal does allow them to fly immigrants out of the country without due process. So that is a way that they could still get around due process. But under the wartime law, that has been placed on hold. I-130 petition processing time, it depends. Hi there. Thank you so much for the blessings. What about naturalized citizens? Are they safe? For the most part, being a citizen, whether you're born here or a naturalized citizen, you're in the best position possible. It is much more difficult to denaturalize a US citizen. You'd have to go through a lot to be able to do that. And it's very rare that that happens. So I would say if you're a green card holder, you qualify for citizenship, go for citizenship now while you can, because that's going to be the strongest position that you're going to be in. Are naturalized citizens safe to travel? I would say citizens are, for the most part, safe to travel. There are still certain risk factors, just depending on your background and circumstances. If you're naturalized, if they find any basis to possibly try to bring a case against you for denaturalization, you want to get advice on that. So, for example, if you got asylum, here's an example. I think that may apply in a situation, but may increase your risk. Say you got asylum because you were facing certain dangers or harms in your country, and then you stayed in the US. You got granted asylum, then you got your green card, then you got your citizenship, and then you travel back to your country as soon as you get citizenship. Those are kinds of questions that are now going to be coming up. Uh, I'm pretty sure those are kinds of questions that will come up to say, well, because one way they can denaturalize is if they can prove fraud, that there was some form of fraud in your initial applications. So if you're now traveling back to a country that you said you couldn't go to because you were in danger, they could then start to say, well, that looks like you may have been lying on that initial application. And before you know it, you may be faced with denaturalization proceedings, which has to be filed in court. So, yeah, I would say be careful, just be mindful of your travel right now. How is green card processing asylum based? Are they moving forward? Unfortunately, right now, they are on hold. Green card processing for asylees have been placed on hold for for vetting. So they are now looking at every application to determine whether they're going to go through background checks again and then look for fraud. So just be mindful of that. It doesn't mean they can't get rid of it. It's under the law. An asylee is supposed to get their green card once they go through the process and they qualify. But they're saying they're going to slow down, they're going to put it on hold to focus on fraud before moving forward with the green card. So that is one of the things that did hit the news. Now, I do send out a weekly newsletter by email as well. If you do want to get updates, you can go to the link in the profile, click on that link. It'll take you to the website. Go to the website, and then sign. If you submit your information, you will be signed on to get that newsletter. Go ahead, do that so you can see also the news that we're paying attention to in the immigration world as well. All right, I'm trying to get to everybody's questions, please. I know you see me turn this way on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Know that I am going to be coming over to you, but I know I haven't been on for a while, so I'm just trying to answer as many questions, if not all questions today. All right, so now TikTok, I've answered all the questions here. I see more questions, but I'm going to jump over here to YouTube and Facebook and then Instagram. So put your questions in the comments and I'll try to quickly go back to TikTok before leaving. Hi, Ms. Sharifa. Thanks for advocacy and advice. Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to provide information that empowers you. It may not always be great news or information, but knowledge is power. Please, I filed I-485, I-130, I-765, I-863, which I think is I-864, and the I-693 on January 14th. How long does it take to receive EAD? So it should take about 3 to 6 months to get that EAD through family-based. How long are receipt notices for I-485 taking? I said 2 to 4 weeks. If the employment authorization card expires within 180 days and extension is submitted in the system but hasn't been approved before expiration date, does the immigrant have to leave? So I don't know what your particular situation is, but usually you get the employment authorization if you're applying for a certain benefit, or if you have a certain type of status or deferred action. If you apply before the 180 days and you have the receipt notice usually has an extension. And that should be enough to hold you over until the next card. If you applied after your card expired, then the automatic extension wouldn't apply because you have to make sure you apply within the the period to apply for for a new green card, renewed employment authorization. However, I don't know what your situation is to be able to tell you whether it's a, whether you have to leave, whether, usually though, when you're applying for an EAD, you're in the middle of the process. So you usually have to wait for a decision on the whole process. My case converted from F1 to F3. My priority date is November 2010. It became current this April. Visa bulletin. When will SIAC portal open to continue my visa processing? So if it's current, you should get an email soon telling you. Now, if it's current, but maybe it's gonna start next month, maybe you saw next month the date, that may be the issue. But usually if it's current, you're gonna get an email soon, within a short period of time, uh, letting you log in and be able to upload your documents. Hey, my prima, and pay the fees. Hey, my prima facie expired last month and haven't received a new one. Sometimes when it takes very long to get the renewed one, and sometimes it does take a little while to get the renewed prima facie, I'll send an email. Sometimes it got lost in the mail. Sometimes, yes, they haven't sent it yet. I'll just send an email and then I'll usually get it. How many years tax should I have filed before I can apply for citizenship? I'm a green card holder through my child. So, if you were obligated to file taxes, then you usually have to show that you have filed your taxes within the most recent 5 years, since you got it through your child. But say if you didn't make any money, say, like I've represented clients who they got it through their child and they're retired, they didn't work, they got their green card and they're just living with their child, enjoying their retirement. At that point, you are not obligated to show taxes. I mean, you have to show that you have to give an explanation sometimes as to why you haven't filed taxes. But it it doesn't mean you don't have to work to pay taxes to file for citizenship. But if under the law, based on your current situation, you are obligated to file taxes, it's usually 5 years, 5 years. So for those 5 years, if you were obligated for those 5 years to pay taxes, then 5 years. If you say you didn't work for 2 years, then you worked for a year, then you didn't work for 2 years, you just have to show that year tax and explain why you didn't file for the other 4 years. So it just depends. But if you've worked all those 5 years, 5 years. Have you gotten any work permit approved for T visa bona fide determinations? So those are coming in slowly, but the T visa bona fide determinations are giving protection to clients. So that is definitely goes a long way because it puts a hold on any removal proceedings, and it also stops any detention or reduces detention. So that right now is the focus, and then they're processing the work permits afterwards. So, but the right now, what's important is protection, and then those work permits are going to come in afterwards. I have both a school adjustment and spouse adjustment simultaneously. The school visa was filed first. So I guess both, it's possible both could go forward at the same time. That's not strange. The thing about it though is sometimes showing permanent intent can cause your F1, your student visa, to be denied. Because if you no, it's usually called change of status for student visa or student status. Um, those might conflict, but the good, unless hopefully there are no misrepresentations, because that can be a big problem. So, for example, if you applied for the student visa and there's information in there that is contrary to the spousal adjustment, you may come upon questions there, and that can be a problem, can be problematic. I'm not your attorney, and I would assume that those aren't there, but you just have to be careful when you have those contradictory applications going in at the same time. How long after doing biometrics will I get my work permit SSN be approved? It's been 7 days now since I done my biometrics. I'm currently filing green card application. So keep in mind, it depends on what you're going through. I don't know if this is family based or VAWA. So for family based, you're looking at 3 to 6 months. For VAWA, 6 to 12 months. Our wait times increasing, so we haven't seen much of a difference. But what's going to happen is over time we're gonna see those changes happen, just like the last Trump administration. First, for example, citizenship took 6 months, then it took a year, then it took 18 months for people to get their citizenship. For green card through marriage base during the last Trump administration, first it was 6 months, then it turned into 9 months, then it turned into 18 months, then it turned into 2 years to get your green card on average. So over time, we can expect the processing times to increase. Hi, I'm sending packages of adjustment of status. How long will you get receipt notice? 2 to 4 weeks. Good morning, just joining. What state are you located in? We're in Florida. However, as immigration attorneys, we represent clients in all 50 states and the globe. So no matter where you are, we can help. Keep up the good work. Thanks so much, Donna. After doing biometrics for T visa, what should be expected? So the bona fide determination is coming next. Then the work permit. Those work permits, you can expect another 3 to 6 months on the processing, should they continue with the same processing for the work permit. And then I would say 18 months after the decisions are coming, or request for evidence. How long will our request for evidence take to be response? So I would say this. It depends. It really depends. I would say it can take 2 to 4 months to get the response on the request for evidence. Um, Sometimes no news is good news. So, for example, for the affidavit of support, you get a request for evidence for the affidavit of support, and then they just continue processing your case without asking for anything else. It usually means the next step is the interview. How are their processing time changes in relief already in place? VAWA, marriage, T visa. So I notice the T visas are more in the 18-month timeline now. Marriage base, we're probably going to be seeing, so what we're seeing are interviews being scheduled. So over time, we're going to see those interviews backed up, and we're going to be seeing longer processing times because people are going to be waiting for interviews now. And for VAWA sometimes does have interviews now because of the extent of the fraud with VAWAs. But right now, we're not seeing much of a difference yet. But I am counting on seeing those change. Hello, what can I do if I miss my appointment for interview? I did not notice it within some of my junk mail and never got notification online, which I check regularly. I do most things electronically. So if you're outside of the country, you may need to reschedule it. It just depends on how much time. So June 7th, 2024, you may be able to get it reinstated, get the app if it's not closed. So usually they close it after a year. So I would say just get in touch with the National Visa Center and get it reopened, and then see if you can get the interview scheduled. Can I do everything jointly with my partner in the 90 days of the K1 visa? Sure. Once you get married, even before you get married, as a fiance, you live together, get onto the lease. They don't necessarily require you to be married. You get your bank account, do what regular people do when they're engaged or about to get married. And then within 90 days, you have to apply for marriage base. I mean, if you've gotten the K1 visa, you've won half the battle. So it's encouraging there, because you clearly, they believe you have a bona fide relationship. You just have to solidify that with marriage. What do you recommend on a relationship living abroad? We've seen each other 2 times, 8 months together. If you're ready for marriage, go ahead and move forward. Usually, for the K1 visa, your fiance in the US has to be a US citizen. You have to show that you've seen each other at least once in the most recent 2 years before filing. So, looks like you could meet that requirement. um, and they don't have any requirements about how long you need to be together. And you just need to show that you do have the intention of getting married within 90 days of your entry into the US. So, if you meet those requirements, the fiance visa is for you. You could expect a wait time of a year and a half to get through that process. Filed for VAWA with my son as derivative. He's 5 years old. EAD got approved, but mine hasn't. Please, can you help me understand the process? So, um, it just seems like a situation where your son's got approved. I wouldn't be able to have any insight, not knowing your case. But yeah, did my interview on Monday and got approved in Florida. Congratulations. After you submit your I-864 and documents, how long before visa interview? So we have yet to see the interview, because it's been a while since interviews were scheduled. So we'll see. Can a permanent resident spouse change status after approval? It depends. This is where you definitely need to get in touch with us. Are you the main question I have when it's like, I'm the spouse of a green card holder. Can I now change status? Sounds like you have an approved I-130. Then my next question is, did you overstay your time here? If you overstayed your visa, then adjustment of status is not going to work here. Your spouse has to first become a US citizen. If the if you are here visiting on a current visa, your priority date is current. Now you have an approved I-130, then it is definitely possible to do that quickly. So this is where I also say, get in touch with us. If you're here visiting as a permanent resident, you now have you're either ready to file with your permanent resident spouse, or you had a petition pending and now it's approved, and you want to know, can you adjust status? It's time to get in touch with us. You may even be able to adjust status before your petition is approved, just depending on the priority date. So it's time to get in touch with us. All right, now I'm on Instagram. I have a question. Put that question in, Mary. Is Green Card Lottery still going to start next month? It's still in place. Yes. What if I overstay on my work visa and find another job, and using my social security, would ICE come looking for me? So the social security, if you use your social security number, it is going to be submitted to the IRS for processing your payroll, so payroll taxes, as well as the taxes that have to be drawn from yours. So In addition to that, if the employer submitted any I-9 verification, that can be a red flag for them. So, yes, using your social security number can be a way through public records or through the records of other agencies that be able to locate your current employment activities. And they do it now. They can review your background and what you've been working on based on your social security number. Now, with the IRS, the deal is based on my last check, the deal is they are transferring the information of those who have removal orders to the Department of Homeland Security to use. That was the last update. So, not every single immigrant's information will be passed on for now, but those who have removal orders. Can an individual check their status after doing T visa biometrics to know what's next? So you're supposed to be able to check the status under the Biden administration. They did make that change, but it looks like it's still showing as not like page not found or something of that nature. You can always call and check on the status that way. Hey, good afternoon. My girlfriend caught a misdemeanor case back in 2022. She has been living in the US since 2014. The case got dismissed and sealed by a judge. Can her mom still file her papers? So she needs to definitely get in touch with us. These are the kinds of situations that are creating that the Trump administration is they're definitely targeting immigrants with past violations on their record. So and whether or not her mom can file for her is depending on her age as well. If she's 21 or older, it's going to be a lot harder. So this definitely she needs to get legal advice anytime it comes to criminal offenses, having anything, even if it's dismissed. I noticed you said here the judge sealed her record. There's no such thing as sealed for immigration. You can't, unless you absolutely cannot find a record, you have to disclose it to immigration. You cannot say it's expunged. I don't need to say. You can do that with other places for expunged records and sealed records, but not immigration. You have to disclose it. Asylum, do they still approve? Yes, asylum is still being approved, it's still being considered. There are certain restrictions at the border, but if you're here, you've applied for asylum, or you're in court and you have to apply for asylum, it's still there. After filing for marriage based green card, when will I get biometrics? So I would say anywhere from two months, a month to I would say a month to 6 weeks to get it through marriage and family base. How long does it take to get an interview date for permanent U.S. visa? I'm thinking permanent residence. It depends on the case type. It depends where you are. File follow with my son as derivative. His AAD was approved, but mine hasn't been. Why? It might just be the order of the applications. I don't know if there's any additional facts in your case. That's where speaking to an attorney is important. Okay, so got response for being qualified. Now waiting for a date to do an interview. We're in Guyana. So yes, that is usually the most nerve-wracking part is the wait. I'm noticing wait times are anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years now. My boyfriend is trying to get his citizenship. He is doing it himself. Do you think he needs a lawyer? You will always hear me say, get a lawyer. Right now, with this especially with this current administration, do not assume any application is simple. That's the worst mistake you can make. A simple application can get complicated very quickly, especially with them focusing on fraud and extreme vetting. As something that should have seen cut and dry can turn into something very nasty. So always have a lawyer, no matter there. Do not assume any case is simple. Can an individual check their status during a T visa biometrics to know what's uh, next? So you should talk to your attorney about what's next. Um, you can't go to the biometrics and ask them the status. Usually, that's not what you would do there. You just do your picture, your signature, um, and your fingerprints. Can I apply for a change of status while being on a B1 OCS visa? It's possible. So I'm not sure what the OCS part is. B1, I know B1 is, visitors, like a visitor's visa. Not sure where the OCS is, but um, it's possible that if you qualify. What to do when still waiting for green card after second interview after 6 months? Um, Sounds like you're definitely going through it. So they do have to, usually they have a certain amount of time that they are supposed to get after an interview to provide you with information. So usually they have 4 months to do that at maximum. So if that's not the case and some time has gone by, you need to definitely get in touch with them and find the status out. I did second interview for over 6 months now and still nothing from USCIS, but have my work permit and travel document that will expire in 2028. So yeah, you need to check on the status of that. How long would it take to become a citizen if it's still an option? So 3 years if you're married to a US citizen and a green card holder. So 3 years after getting your green card. 5 years if if you got your green card through someone else other than your U.S. citizen spouse. What does the process look like if you're an international student that recently got married in December, but your visa is expiring next year in January? Do you have to apply for another visa? So, if you're married to a US citizen, you can do adjustment of status. Even if you overstay your visa, you can still qualify. But definitely get in touch with us and let's talk about your case so we can confirm and get started. Yeah, especially now. Now is not the time to wait. Once you find out you qualify for something, it's time to jump on it because changes are happening hard and fast. We want to make sure that you get in while the benefits are still available. Is the IRS and USCIS looking for the people who already have a case in the USCIS? Mm, So the IRS is different from the USCIS. USCIS, no. So if you already have a pending case, it means you're not in removal. ICE is not looking for you. Unless there are extreme cases like you're wanted by the police or something like that. But the USCIS isn't necessarily in the business of targeting the people who have current cases. Now, they do have a new policy in place that they would issue a notice to appear if they denied your case and you didn't have any other legal status. They would then issue a notice to appear. That's a new policy that was in place during the last Trump administration that has come back again. But having a case with the USCIS is not what makes them look for you. Um, my driver's license expired and I went for biometrics 2 weeks ago. What can I do? So, if you have an extension of your work permit on the receipt notice, you can take that to the DMV and get your driver's license renewed. Um, All right. Okay, let's see. I want to move to the USA. I have a USA tourist visa, so that's where you definitely need to see if you're qualified. Okay. Is there a showdown for a marriage-based green card? And if so, how long does the process take right now? So I'm not sure what that showdown means, but I would say this marriage-based, all cases, expect them to get a little more complicated, more questions. Definitely interviews are going to be coming. I got my work permit from now. How much time for a green card? It just depends on your case type. So it's not based on the work permit, but the case type and whether you qualify for it. How long does the process take for a parent to file for an unmarried child over 21? That's already in the US. So if they already overstayed, keep in mind adjustment of status is not going to work here. You get in touch with us. Let's do an initial evaluation. But it takes 5 to 7 years for any child, unmarried son or daughter who is over 21. So you definitely want to see if there are any other options available here. Can I file VAWA if my spouse did not tell me about the criminal record? So, not telling you, not disclosing your record alone is not enough for a VAWA. But was there any other mistreatment that was involved? That's where we would have to evaluate your facts to determine was there any other mistreatment in addition to not disclosing the information. N600 got denied for my daughter. I'm in the military. I have citizenship. So we'd have to look at that to see why it was denied. And then we'd be able to advise. Good day. Should I be worried about receiving my extension receipt? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It depends on your case. It depends. All right, so I'm gonna just answer some questions here on TikTok and then I have to go out. I have my interview 7 months ago from my wife. I don't know why it's taking so long. So usually when it takes this long, they're either doing extra checks, extra background checks, or there's additional questions that they have. Usually what you'd have to do is when it's taking this long without explanation, you need to get in touch with them to figure out the status. US citizen parent. Um, is T visa still being approved? Yes, T visas are still being approved. Absolutely. This relief is still available. How long after getting acceptance notice for work permit? How long after it gets approved? It depends on the case type. Family-based, employment-based, spouse, marriage-based, 3 to 6 months. I got my green card 2 years ago, but living in the US going on 7 years. How long should I take for and I'm thinking citizenship. So it depends on how you got your green card. If it's through marriage to a US citizen, you're still married to the US citizen, still living in marital union. You're looking at 3 years, 5 years if any other situation. If you're in the military, you're looking at about a year. Is US citizen parent sponsor adult unmarried children prior to date 2018 case NVC? How long again for green card? So 5 to 7 years for that one. I sent my packet in last week, Tuesday. How long before I get a response from USCIS? I'd say it could be 2 weeks during busy times, which right now it's busy, 2 to 8 weeks. Misrepresentation, marriage fraud, USCIS cancel green card. That's a serious thing. Definitely serious. And keep in mind, we might be seeing a lot more of these. So this is where it's very important. So one thing I want to caution you on, Right now, do not think that running and getting married to somebody just to get the green card is going to fix your situation. It could actually make things worse because you would be permanently barred, and they know they know the patterns. They know how to spot it, and they're going to be spending a lot more time sifting through applications to identify fraud. So do not assume that with everything going on, you're just going to simply marry somebody and get it over with. It's not that simple. You must go for benefits you qualify for. Whenever we apply for our clients, we make sure that they qualify for it. And then we work hard for our clients to submit a solid application. I-130 approved, no current visa date, need J1 to start medical residency by June. So if you don't have a current priority date and you need a current priority date, then you can't just rush it along to be able to get there. You may be able to, if there are ways to request an expedite. If you have I-130 approved at the point where you're then going through the National Visa Center stage, you may be able to get it expedited. And one of them might be if you're going to start medical residency, if the hospital, and I'm not your attorney, I can't give you personalized legal advice, but for example, the hospital is facing shortages of physicians and they absolutely need you to be able to work, which if you have the J1, you are probably able to work. So that probably wouldn't be a good argument. But if for some reason not having the green card is going to stop your ability to work or interfere with your ability to work effectively, that may be one way. But I don't know your story. I don't know what's happening, but that might be a basis, just depending on the facts. Married to a US citizen, do you think it's safe to go by the DMV to do change of address on a permit? I wouldn't, it depends on what's going on in your area. Keep in mind that you do have ICE operations happening in different locations, and where it just depends on what's going on in your area, what's going on at the DMV. So if you qualify for a permit, you can show you have a valid permit, then your risk might be lower, but I don't know what your situation is. How long after getting acceptance notice for work permit before it gets approved? So I believe I answered this, but 3 to 6 months, family-based, VAWA, 6 to 12 months. How does interview process go if spouse is overseas? Do I have to be there? So if they need you there, they'll definitely tell you, but in most cases, they don't require the spouse to be there. I encourage the spouses to be there, just because it if the officer sees that, it definitely looks like the spouse is putting the effort out, that it is a bona fide marriage. But not all immigrants can do that. Not all spouses of immigrants can do that. So the practice is no, they don't require you, but they do allow you to be there if you can. Are undocumented immigrants can still travel within the USA domestic with a valid passport after May 7th? I would say no. If Why would you even risk traveling now? Right now, things are touch and go everywhere. So it definitely is not safe to travel even right now with a valid passport if you determine yourself to be undocumented, then it wouldn't be safe to travel. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. I am going to work on being here every day. Changes are happening every day, so Mondays through Fridays. I'm going to work to be present to answer your questions. So hopefully we can cut it down to 30 minutes instead of an hour and 30 minutes. But thank you for your time. These are all great questions. I'm going back to getting the work done because we have a lot of applications to file to get our clients the relief they deserve. So thanks, everybody. And remember, get in touch with us. Call us, submit your information through our website, and then we'll get in touch with you to schedule that free evaluation so you're able to determine what you qualify for and then how we can approach it for you. All right, bye-bye.